This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. While other film podcasts decorate their house for Christmas, we make sure our power plant has a switch to extra auxiliary power. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and I'm a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. I'm joined by my brother and common man co-host, the man who taught me everything there is to know about outdoor illumination, Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. How about you, buddy?
Sorry, I knew I had to slip that one in because that
was a good one.
There's so many awesome little lines in this movie, and I heard it's like you're everything I knew about outdoor illumination. I'm like, oh, that's my joke for Jake right there. It is December, and it is Christmas time, and that means we are doing another mini series. We're doing all Christmas movies this month. Some will be serious, some will be not serious. Like this one today, we're going to kick it off with a great one. It is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, directed by Jeremiah S. Chechik, written by John Hughes, based on the characters created by John Hughes in the previous Vacation movies, starring Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Juliette Lewis, Johnny Galecki, and Randy Quaid, co-starring a bevy of character actors: John Randolph, Diane Ladd, E.G. Marshall, Doris Roberts, William Hickey, Miriam Flynn, Mae Questel, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Nicholas Guest, and Brian Doyle Murray. Opened on December 1st, 1989. Made $71.3 million on a $25 million budget. Stayed pretty consistently throughout that month. And then obviously after the year was over, kind of fizzled, but a cable classic, especially these days. No awards attention whatsoever. Unsurprising based on the movie. Little surprising. I was actually surprised at how well critics actually liked it. It's 70% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes for critics, 86% for audience. Not really surprising. The surprising part of I didn't expect critics to like this movie as much as they did. This doesn't seem like it's so silly. Like there's no part, like it's not trying to do anything extra. It's not trying to, it's kind of like Step Brothers. Like they don't have any high lofty expectations. They're there for a stupid, silly Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exactly what you get.
It does it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something about, seasonal films.
Yeah.
They're going to have a limited draw, right?
Yeah.
You can release something December 1st that's maybe non-seasonal and get a longer, box office stream off of it. But obviously this being seasonal, then it's kind of
like, okay, once Christmas is over, once a new year, you're like, okay, well, that's kind of the limit of what we have. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like $71 million in 1989 is perfectly acceptable. Don't be wrong. But at the same time, so I will go through the plot summary of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. There isn't I was thinking about it. I'm like, not exactly plot heavy. It's essentially the movie is prepping the time they're spent up to Christmas Day. So Clark Griswold from the previous two, at this time, this is the third Christmas Vacation movie following Vacation and European Vacation. Clark Griswold is going to have a great Christmas with his whole family. Obviously, his wife Ellen, his daughter Audrey, and his son Rusty. He has these grand ideas of what Christmas is supposed to be and what it needs to be, and kind of very romanticized of how everything is. And then essentially everything is kind of based on the idea of it has to be bigger and better and best and everything it could possibly be. And it turns out Clark and Ellen's parents, both sets, are going to stay at their house for Christmas. By the way, they arrive, I believe, on the 14th of December. That is an extreme amount of time. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you can I love my in-laws. I don't want to spend
as do I
10 days at the minimum with them. That's nuts. So, but regardless, so I
don't want to spend 10 days with anyone.
mean, yeah. Like anybody who's not there all the time. Yeah, exactly. It's an extreme amount of time. Regardless, so they're bickering. It's annoying. Clark's trying to have this positive attitude. All the while, he's kind of anxiously waiting for his Christmas bonus check from his job. And he has put a deposit down for a pool to be installed, but doesn't have the money to cover it. So he's kind of been waiting on that, and tries to put lights on his house. It's a big mess. And he finally gets all that to work. And then his cousin Eddie from the first movie, Randy Quaid, shows up with his wife and their kids unannounced. Eddie is the worst and just causes everything to spin out of control worse and worse and worse. And then, Christmas Eve, like they have this big Christmas Eve dinner. It's a disaster. Mess after mess after mess happens. And then the Christmas bonus finally comes, and it's a membership to the Jelly of the Month Club, a gift that gives the
all year round.
If it
keeps on giving,
if it's somebody, like if you have a random cousin who gives you a Jelly of the Month Club, you're like, it's kind of cool. Like, what a fun little thing to have. Like, yeah, not a bad one. But obviously, this sends Clark over the edge, and he snaps. Eddie, in his, in his sweethearted, idiotic mind, decides to go kidnap his boss, and brings him there. Everybody calls him out on what a turd he is. He says, okay, well, I'll change my mind. You get your bonus plus a little extra. And it essentially saves everything. The cops show up to arrest everybody. But his boss essentially said, no, it's okay. And so everything, and they go outside, and they see, the Christmas star, and then Clark's uncle almost dies because he throws a match in the sewer, and everything kind of goes crazy. And at the end, Clark looks up and says, I did it. I put on the perfect Christmas. The most idiotic sentence after what you've seen in the last 90 minutes betrays everything he says, but he says he did it and did the perfect Christmas as the credits roll as
yeah, I love it. And it's kind of a running joke between me and my wife is like when stuff screws up, and screws up and screws up, and then, but you finally reach a resolution or something, and we'll be like, I did it.
There's nothing goes right whatsoever through the entire movie. Everything wrong until he gets his money, and then that's the only thing that is correct. Like,
right, and then it ends.
My question is, when do you give up? Like whenever the dinner goes awry, the dog and the squirrel, the cat explodes. I mean, there's a lot to get into with this movie.
I don't know. I might have tapped out like as soon as everyone showed up.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be out in the garage.
So, and I think at one point, Clark's working on his lights, and he goes, "It's like I'm going to go out here for the season, working on the lights." It's kind of the excuse to get out of the house. And I mean, it's funny because the entirety of what everybody does in this, like, there's a sense in this movie that this movie really gets in how much you love and despise your family. Like, you know the little things they do. My favorite little things in this movie is whenever all the parents get there and Ellen's mother shows up. You have no idea what she says, but Ellen just goes, "You promise, you promise, you promise." Like
right.
It's like you're gonna do
don't
this.
Bring that up, or whatever it is.
Whatever it is, and
don't say that about someone.
Yeah, and I mean, and even like, oh, these parents are sweet, and you're like, they're still it's just all something.
Well, I mean, and really, I mean, it perfectly encapsulates a realistic family holiday.
Yes,
there's always like
there's a level of tension.
Those two aren't going to talk, and I'm going to have to keep this person occupied. And this one, definitely don't get into politics. And this one, don't get into religion. And it's like, you're tiptoeing through the tulips.
Absolutely.
With just the closest people that you love and love you. I mean, it's a minefield.
And then even like little things that should be pretty straightforward. Like, so Clark gets stuck in the attic and he's supposed to go shopping with everybody. And they're getting in the car. It's like, Clark is like, he's got his own car. I need to eat so I can take my back pill. Like, it's just like, and you're just like, well, how do I argue with this, you old bastard? Like, sure, get in the car. Let's go. Like,
right. Yeah. Yeah, taking care of old people, it's like it's like that. It's like, did you take your pills? Did you?
And it's a you can tell the exasperation on Ellen and Clark just going like, what battles do I need to fight here? Like, is this something I want to go 12 rounds about, or am I just gonna have to let this one go?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like whenever Audrey is she's peeling carrots, getting ready for the dinner one night.
Yes.
And she's like, I have to sleep with my brother. She's like, well, I have to sleep with your dad. We're all making
sacrifices. and I mean that again lends to the tension.
And then she's like looking for a stash of smokes.
And she finally gets one in and she has those huge botch of matches, strikes it, and all these matches go flying. And of course, the second she does, the mom asked if she's smoking.
Are you smoking again?
No, paka into a thing of lettuce. So I mean, it's all that kind of tension. Okay, so Chevy Chase, Clark Griswold, the character he plays probably more than like the character you essentially associate Chevy Chase with. Even though if you think about it, like there are 4 vacation movies, the first one obviously being the classic that it is, the Wally World, all the the Claudia Schiffer of it all that kind of thing. That one and this one are really the ones that have the cultural touchstones. I think European Vacation is probably the one that's most lost. I've never seen it.
Yeah. I've never seen European Vacation.
My wife has, and she says it's funny. There's fun parts to it. I've seen Vegas Vacation a few times. It's fine. But I mean,
this was definitely National Lampoon's big hit. It's this and Animal House
that's really like, if you look through the national, I was thinking whenever I was thinking to pull for a dumbass topics, I was like, oh, I could do National Lampoon movies. And I looked at the National Lampoon movies and like, no, you're going to say no to 10 of these. You never even heard of them. I mean, this is the peak of what they were able to achieve. Chevy Chase being the main force of this. And whenever I was watching this, it's hard to reconcile watching this movie with what you know today. Like Chevy Chase probably has the worst reputation of any comedian in Hollywood without impropriety. Like, he's just a prick.
Yeah. I was disappointed to hear that. And I only just recently listened to something that said they did a Chevy Chase roast.
Yes, the classic Chevy Chase roast. It's by the way, you can find it. Go look at it. It's one of the most vicious things I've ever seen in my life. It's not fun. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, it's just like if you show up to your own roast, expect like it's the description I heard of it, I haven't watched it, but it sounds like it went about as well as as Michael's roast in the Office.
In The Office. So
where they actually start insulting him, and then he actually gets insulted. So
there have been 2 Chevy Chase roasts in history. Apparently the Friars Club is the one who used to put this on. The first time it was kind of in his peak and he was really famous, and it was the good-spirited, nice-hearted, like, ho, Chevy's cheap, ha ha ha, or whatever it is, and he kind of like, and it's all just jokes back and forth. But at the second one, he had burned so many bridges when they called to do like, hey, can you come to this roast? And it's like, No, you're supposed to like the person you're roasting. You're supposed,
Right.
it's supposed to
Yeah,
be, it's supposed to be like, it's like if I'm roasting you, I would be saying things, you would be laughing at it, and I would be
Right.
laughing at it. We'd be back and forth. It's all in good fun. It's busting balls, but it's not that kind of mean spirited. Well, they couldn't do that. So,
yeah, if you actually hate someone, then it's not a roast. You're just insulting.
so what they did instead, they found young comedians who didn't have the aura of Chevy Chase being great. Like Greg Giraldo is the best example that I know of. They had Greg Giraldo on there who notoriously did not care. And he's like, I'll make fun of Chevy Chase, sure. And he was vicious. And after a while, Chevy Chase tried as long as he could, but after, I think he left in tears. Like, yeah, but so you kind of have to reconcile that. And because like Clark in theory is a nice, wholesome man, but as this movie kind of goes on, you're like, he's kind of a prick. Like he can't, like, he's really, really, really nice to his wife and kids. Yeah. That's about it. Everybody else he has no patience for.
Yeah, it's almost like he uses up all his energy on the kind of his central family, and like he doesn't have any patience left for anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, even at his office, he's talking to his boss. He's very nice to him. Merry Christmas. Yeah. So it's like, kiss my ass, kiss his ass, happy Hanukkah, just all the way down. And he's kind of like that the way to, and he's his, obviously from the first movie being kind of the precursor of setting this up, is that Clark's he romanticizes everything, including the idea that another beautiful woman could fall in love with him. And the woman at the counter at Macy's showing him lingerie. Counter. And, even at one point, Rusty comes over, sees him, and just goes, that son of a bitch is at it again. Like, it's just, so you kind of have to reconcile that. But that being said, Clark and Chevy Chase in general has this kind of quality to be able to be wholesomely sarcastic and funny and manic. It's a lot of different aspects all thrown together that make it very likable.
Yes, I think it's very identifiable.
Yes, I agree.
I think that's the best part about his character, is because, I mean, we've all been there. You're, big family get together.
Sure.
And you're fine. You're cheery. You put on the nice face. You want this to go well.
Yep.
All this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then, someone will say something and you just, I want all these people out of my goddamn house.
So I personally have hosted a large holiday once, and I wasn't it was Thanksgiving. I wasn't cooking, but still just the anxiety of, this is my place. I like all my stuff. Like, you're sitting where I sit, and it's uncomfortable, and just adding all that. The support, half the reason this is as fun as it is because all the supporting actors are so great.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
We'll get into Beverly D'Angelo and Randy Quaid a little later. So, John Randolph and Diane Ladd as Clark's parents. Diane Ladd, by the way, do you know who Diane Ladd's daughter is?
I do not.
It's Laura Dern.
Oh, really?
Yes. Bruce Dern and Diane Ladd made Laura Dern. So there you go. E.G. Marshall and Doris Roberts playing Ellen's parents. Obviously, Doris Roberts being much more famous these days from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Oh yeah, she's great in this.
Absolutely. Mae Questel, who plays Aunt Bethany. This was her last film. She is one of the more famous people to ever grace a film screen, but she's the voice of Betty Boop.
No shit.
Yes, this is her last movie after a very, very long career. Wow. So William Hickey as Uncle Lewis. Just everything. Uncle Lewis, I don't think does anything funny, but everything he does is funny. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he never cracks a joke,
The blessing.
What do you? What the?
Yes. Dude, I was hoping you would wear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a man who is so fed up with it. Like, you normally, whenever like the idea of dementia or Alzheimer's, you're like, oh, it's very empathetic. He has no patience for it. Just zero. Just he's like, whatever you're doing, it's annoying to me. So, I mean,
well, and he kind of reminds me of our one of our granddads.
Yes, a little bit, yeah.
Who towards the end of his life, the last few years, like he had basically half his ear had to get cut off because of cancer.
Yeah.
And they were talking about rebuilding it or something. And he's like, if people don't like it, they shouldn't look at it. And then
absolutely. It's very much like,
I mean,
I'm old. Like, what are you going to do?
I'm 80.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. So there's a lot of that. There's they all play their roles really well. Marion Flynn plays the husband, or excuse me, the wife to Eddie, Randy Quaid. She's cousin Catherine. Then there's Brian Doyle Murray as the boss. So obviously he is Bill Murray's brother. Yes.
Yeah.
And the two stars of the movie, Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Nicholas Guest, as the fantastic Margot and I'm missing the other one. Sorry, Margot and Todd and Margot. So
I almost said Robbie.
The funny thing about them is, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, they're yuppies. They're like, you're like, they kind of like, you see, like they suck, and then you like, if you really think about it, like they don't really do anything wrong. They just see Clark and they're like, Clark sucks, and that's essentially the end, and they're terrorized throughout the entire movie.
It's our hillbilly neighbor basically that can't get his shit together and fuck shit up every chance he can. Like they said, it's like he's putting up the lights and it's like, well, I hope he falls down and break his neck. And Todd goes, I don't think we're lucky enough for him to break his neck. It's like, he'll definitely fall down, but not going to break his neck. It's like, we know what's going on here. It's like, and just from top to bottom, I like, so Uncle, I guess Uncle Lewis is the one that kind of sticks with me as far as it gets the most fun things to do. I really like the as far as the actual performances in this movie. John Randolph as Clark's dad is one of my like, man, I really like that one. Like he's a sweet guy, and he's actually tries to reason with him in a nice way, like and I really like the scene, like when Clark finally just fucking loses it. And his dad goes in there and basically says, man, I've been there. Like, Jack Daniels helped. Like, and that's the funny thing about that scene is, Clark has this romanticized version of what Christmas could be. And he admits right there, it's like, all our holidays were always a mess. It was a mess. It was always a mess. It's like, well, where's this romanticized version of Christmas? Like, is the mess the fun part? Is the mess I'm sure it's memorable, like, but I mean, in the moment, it's hell. Well, and like, I can look back to our childhood Christmases. And I'm like, oh, that was perfect. Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone got along. Everything worked. Presents. The food was great. Yeah. Everything. But now I can look back on it and I'm like, oh, those two people hated each other. And they were divorced the next year. Right. Yeah. And something burned. And you also look at it from the perspective of it, like, I love the feeling of Christmas, the jubilation, those aspects, of fire, it's cold outside, all that fun stuff.
but as a parent, it's really rough. It's it's work. And and I'm sure, and our parents did such a great job of giving us great Christmases.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot imagine the work it went into in order for that to happen.
Yeah, well, we know now, as both being dads, is like, I mean, Christmas is really about the kids.
Absolutely.
That's really all you're trying to do is you're trying to kids have a good Christmas, then okay.
That's what you care about. Yes, absolutely.
I can be completely miserable.
Yep. Also,
and this can cost me an arm and a leg, and I'm gonna have to do overtime next week to make up for this. But the kids had a good time.
You really understand, like, and I can truly empathize with Christmas drinking more than I've ever understood before. Like, I have a lot of help from Jack Daniels. Totally makes sense to me. You're like, man, this is a lot. I really have to like.
Yeah. And I remember same granddad telling me they'd go over for family events to his parents' house.
Yeah.
And well, his dad had a bad drinking problem anyways, but he was always schnockered whenever he got there. And he thought at the time it was because he didn't like them being over there, but later on he said, I realized it was just the stress of hosting and having people and everything. That was this go-to.
It's like, oh, I got to start drinking.
This is all I
got. so the
get that old crow in you.
Okay, buddy. So I was thinking about one of these scenes. Kind of the kind of gist of the film. You kind of don't really necessarily believe this is 100% a real situation. It's all pretty outlandish and stuff like that. But that being said, you can kind of stretch the imagination on the lot. The only part of it I didn't like was the sledding scene. Everything else I was really on board with. And that was kind of like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. I was like,
Yeah, that's kind of the most extreme slapstick.
Yeah.
I guess I mean, Chevy Chase in this, his physical comedy is great.
Yes, like, I agree.
Just a scene like where he's in the attic and he's trying to open the rafter to try to call him back, and he's hitting his head.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great. Yeah, that was.
That's the only one where you're like, okay, that doesn't really fit with the rest of the film.
It's a bit goofy. Yeah.
That being said, so whenever you think of this film, what's the scene you think of as like your go-to? You're like, this is what the movie is about.
That fucking squirrel scene.
Just from the like the setup of, for some reason Aunt Bethany can hear it, but nobody else can, and then it's in there, and they freak out, and the mom passes out. And maybe the line of the movie, which on its face value wouldn't be very funny. And he turns around, knocks his mom over, and then very casually, after the squirrel lands on Julia Louis-Dreyfus and the dog follows, shuts the door and goes, "Squirrel's gone." Just
well, not our problem.
There's a story, apparently, whenever they did test audiences for this movie, they tested it all out, and they were really worried about the cat scene, about the cat being electrocuted. And all the test audience says, no, that was my favorite scene. Keep that in, for the love of God, please. It's
right. There's probably more cat haters out there than cat lovers.
Probably so. But, I mean, that cat.
And I'm a cat owner.
That cat doesn't do much bad besides. It's not like he's messing with stuff. Like, snot is way more destructive, obviously, than the cat.
Well, and that's what I thought is like, if a family member randomly showed up with, and we have animals,
sure,
but if they just showed up and they had this beast of an animal, or
Rottweiler,
I'd be like, no, you got to go kennel that thing or something, or stay somewhere else. Like,
it's also. It's my favorite sight gag of the movie is whenever they're at the store and Randy Quaid just keeps getting bag after bag of dog food. Old Roy, 3 huge ones. Of course, Purina, and then Clark gets a bag of gets some light bulbs, puts it on, another bag on top. I mean, just big bag of treats, wet dog food. So I mean, Rottweilers obviously eat plenty of food, so that's an aspect to it. But okay, so scenes wise, that's your number one. What's the line? What's the movie line that sticks with you more than anything else?
So my wife agrees on this.
Okay,
man. We both
you're in lockstep about this one. Okay.
This movie.
Okay.
And this, we agree, this is the best line.
Okay.
Is whenever Aunt Bethany arrives and Clark is walking her in, she says, "Don't throw me down, Clark."
I heard that too, and it does make me laugh. I don't know why it is.
Well, he said, "Okay, I'll try not to, Aunt Bethany." And just walks her in the house. It's like, and it's like, why would I throw down my elderly aunt?
She has a couple. She has a couple other ones that are really good. Like, is Rusty still in the Navy?
Right, the 12-year-old child in this house. Yeah.
So I mean,
and then you should go in there and say hello. I should say it. I should say hello.
It's like
Bethany is my favorite character. Bethany, to be honest.
Bethany is great. It's like, Bethany, does your cat like Jell-O? It's just and that's the
Grace.
That's the second best sight gag in this movie. Whenever he takes her, shakes it, and he's wrapped her damn cat, and he's holding it, and it just.
I would like to know how they did that.
It's It's a very impressive, realistically.
Like, did they put a race car in it or something? Or
yeah, it looks like there's something jumping around.
There's a cat trapped in a gift box.
A lot of my favorite lines have to do with Eddie, even though it's not necessarily Eddie's line. Mm-hmm. Like, my personal favorite is the one from Clark, because Eddie shows up out of the nowhere and he's trying to figure everything out, my favorite part about the entire scene is he's in the living room. He's wearing a sweater with a turtleneck bib.
I love that you can see that through.
Oh, it's so clearly
sweater.
You're like through that, like, and I said, I've never heard of that. And my wife was like, no, I know what that is. It's like, but you'd probably have a different color than if you're yelling a yellow one. Like,
yeah, it was, I was on the honor guard at the police department. We had those, but they were white, and our uniforms that went over it were almost black, navy, dark navy.
It reminds me of graduation pictures from high school wearing the tuxedo bib.
Oh yeah,
when you're
just
like
the fake.
Yeah, the fake thing. Yeah. So my favorite that scene is the best because he's dicking around with everything in the house, screwing everything up. He gets and they're walking around and. Clark says, "Can I refill your eggnog for you? Get you something to eat? Drive in the middle of nowhere, leave you for dead." And Eddie just takes it in stride and like, "Nah, I'm doing just fine, Clark."
Just happy to be here.
There's so many of those all
older
over
daughters
hooked on the wild turkey.
Yeah, she's in the clinic getting off the wild turkey, and then he's got another son that's barking for the yak woman.
Uglier than sin, but a sweet lady and a hell of a cook.
Yeah, hell of a cook.
Save the neck for me, Clark. That's always a good one. And just that entire dinner scene is great. Everybody trying to eat, and everybody well, I'm gonna eat bread, and
I like everyone like they're drinking extra, trying to get it down, like.
Or okay, so this is a good segue into Beverly D'Angelo because she does one of my favorite things in this. She'll put a little on her fork and then just fling it away, like and I was thinking,
she gets this look around the table like
it's like delicious.
Perfect.
And it's so Randy Quaid in that scene is really good because you're like, everybody finds this food utterly disgusting, and he's like, "Can you load me back up? That's good." Like,
that was good.
just so.
Well, and
let's go into Randy Quaid, the Randy Quaid of it all.
Well, and then one of the greatest things is Clark says, "Hey, what's wrong with your dog? He's under the table. He's shaking the whole table." And he's like, "Oh, he's just yakking on a bone." And
you're vomiting.
Feed him from the table. He's like, no, probably just rooting around in the trash. Looks in the kitchen is
it's just chaos. And then,
but can you imagine if you brought your dog to my house and it got in the trash and scattered it everywhere? Would I be cleaning it up?
No, you would not. Not only that, you go in there, it's like, "Hey, Ben, your dog did this, so I'm about to murder your dog. So, you want to get all this." That's the other thing. Clark's so understanding of everybody else's feelings. It's driving him madder and madder and madder.
Yeah, I think that's why, like, he goes so nuts. Is he is more concerned with the perfect Christmas, than he is with his own sanity.
But him snapping is half the appeal. Like, he goes outside and cuts down a tree, comes back in. It's like, was that necessary? What? I need a tree. We got a tree. And then he cuts the post off the banister with, I was like, hey, practical solution. Exactly. Practical solution. Just all that. Okay. So
Randy Quaid.
The Randy Quaid of it all. Okay. So we got, I mentioned how I kind of had to wrestle with the fact that Chevy Chase is a turd. Randy Quaid being a turd takes the cake over, makes Chevy Chase look like Mr. Rogers.
Does he really?
So Randy Quaid has gone off the deep end of sanity. Like, he has a beard that is probably 4 times yours. Him and his wife post YouTube videos, which are an incredible array of conspiracy theories and lack of logic. So yeah, look up Randy Quaid if you get the chance. But in this movie, he is so attuned to how terrible and gross Cousin Eddie is. And he's on the same wavelength of like, okay, I'm not going to be gross, like necessarily like I'm going to be like sleazy, but at the same time with a level of class that I believe I have, like the leisure suits and the bib, the bib and all that kind of stuff. Man. Yeah, just yeah, like he's like, oh, it's like I traded my, it's like that's an RV. I traded, he took my house, I took that, like trying to.
There is an RV. Looks
I mean,
good, doesn't it?
He plays this kind of character so well.
Yeah.
And it's funny because watching it, you're like, I don't know at any point of his life that Randy Quaid has ever been handsome. And I don't know any point of his life where Dennis Quaid has not been handsome. And the fact that they're
definitely the ugly brother.
Absolutely. But he does his. Oh, shut up. But he does, he does that really well. And he's not afraid to be that, like having a stogie in your mouth with that stupid hat, wearing a bathrobe with a beer,
drinking a beer and emptying a
shitter. I mean,
shitter was full.
Oh, what are you looking at? The silent majesty of a winter's morn, the clean, cool chill of a holiday air, an asshole in a bathrobe emptying its chemical toilet in my sewer.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
Well, I love that scene whenever the neighbors come out and he goes, shitter was full.
Merry Christmas. Yeah.
It's just a matter of fact. He's like, I'm emptying out my shitter.
Yeah. Like if anybody else would be like, wow, that's terrible. I don't want to tell anybody this. It's like, hey, this is what I got to do. And that's fine. No big deal.
These are the ABCs of me, baby.
Okay. So on the flip side of Randy Quaid is Beverly D'Angelo.
Mm-hmm.
She is pristine in this movie. She is so her disposition. Beautiful in this movie. Everything, like,
I'll say it.
She's great. I think she's beautiful in this movie. But at the same time, like a very mother performance, like very like, so all the insanity that Clark goes through, Ellen never does. Ellen's actually the one that keeps it pretty well together the whole time. And I was thinking, actually, until the last scene, they're like, he's so inundated with what's going on, he doesn't really pay her much attention.
Yeah, no, not really. I think, yeah, she's it just seems like she's just trying to hold it together.
I mean, and not only that, she fixes the lights and gives him the credit.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
She's
yeah.
like,
and yeah, that scene when he's confused about the lights and, you know, she kisses her finger and
right in the dimple. Yeah. It's just like, don't stay too long, Sparky. And just, it's like,
yeah.
And she's,
it's very endearing.
It is like, very endearing. And she's hilarious
like
in the movie.
Everyone wants a wife like that. That's like, I know you are a complete dumbass, but I love you anyways.
I'm on board with you. I'm
gonna try to help you get through.
And it's the most egregious problem with the first Vacation movie is his scene with skinny dipping with Claudia Schiffer.
Right.
He's caught, and she immediately forgives him without even an argument. Just like, I know you're going through a lot, and it's insane. But I mean,
that's not the way my vacation on. I don't know about yours.
I think if I skinny dip with Claudia Schiffer, I don't think I'll ever see my wife again, or I'll be dead before I wake up. So, I mean,
right. Yes. But at the same time, you can also tell your wife, like, it's Claudia Schiffer.
It's like, you know, put myself in the shoes.
I just not gonna do it.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about like, Rusty seeing him flirt with the lady, and it's like, oh, that's par for the course. And she's like, okay, well, this is what he does, I guess. And just endearing is the best word for it. I love Beverly D'Angelo in this movie, and I love Beverly D'Angelo in general. Pretty much everything I've ever seen her in, I was like, oh, she's always great. The other thing this film does, probably the best part of what this film does, and besides obviously the comedy, is leaning into that Christmas nostalgia, especially when he's stuck up in the attic.
Yep.
He's stuck up in the attic. He puts on those old videos and watches all that stuff. And even though those videos looks pretty chaotic, but I mean, you have the Ray Charles song in the background. You're like, that's the way it used to be. And it's like you said, you remember all those kid Christmases. You're like, that was great. And, but then you put the adult context in it. It's the naivety of being a kid. And you're like, oh, okay, I want to try to recreate that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's, I think that's like every good parent's, ambition around Christmas is just to create this perfect experience, mostly for your kids. Yeah. Also other family members. But it's a lot of work, and it never really pans out the way you think. And but I mean, and then the rose-colored glasses of it all is like, oh, it's all great. And then looking at, and also wearing a Tallulah Bankhead thing and you know, all that kind of just silliness. And that being said, that was another one of those, like, how do you get locked into a attic? Like, I don't think there was ever a lock on it to begin with. Right. Yeah. And I also thought whenever his feet punched through the ceiling, I'm like, I would just crawl through. Hop down. Exactly. And that was another good joke down there whenever trying to warm his hands. Yeah. Yeah. I would just crawl through. But. And the kids in general in this movie treat him and with pretty well respected. It's like, oh yeah, he's a goofball, just kind of like the wife. It's like, right. He's trying, he wants so hard for this to happen. Like whenever the lights first go wrong,
his daughter's like, well, she worked really hard, Grandma. It's like, so
Yeah.
what's
It said it still looks good, Daddy, even if it's not lit up.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that's nice. Like, oh, that's another thing this film does really well. It establishes like, okay, this family dynamic is set. It's not like they're in trouble. It's like, okay, yeah.
No, this is a good dad. This is a good family man.
Yes.
He's just a fuck up.
He's just a fuck up, yes.
He's always well-intentioned, though.
A well-intentioned fuck up, yes.
Yes.
All right, buddy. Every week I go through the filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. It is time for Pull for a Dumbass. Sponsorships available. Thank you for being a part of it. And this is going to be a fun one today because I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path. Instead of doing Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Randy Quaid, a lot of different options. I was thinking maybe Christmas movies. We got a lot of Christmas movies coming up. I'm going to go a little off that, and I am going to go with the girl we just talked about, the girl who plays Audrey, Miss Juliette Lewis, still hanging around, still doing stuff throughout all these years. This was technically not her first movie, but a very beloved actress, a classic, like, I'm not sure if she's classically beautiful, but I understand people who find her sexy.
Definitely.
Yes. So
I think, yeah.
So
she's got a hometown appeal to her.
She's got something about her. Yes. So, like I said, this was not her first movie. Her first movie was the year before in a movie called My Stepmother's an Alien. We'll ignore that one. You get a win right off the bat since we got Christmas Vacation. The next movie, so she was in a little bit of stuff, but the big thing she was in, and the thing that brought her to prominence, got her an Oscar nomination, 1991 in Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear.
Yes.
She is really, really good in that movie. And she's exceptional. And it's like, it's kind of Lolita-esque, but she's like Lolita with like, she's being manipulated. She's a little more innocent. But I mean, so it's a freaky movie. It is a freaky movie. It's probably one of the more commercial of Scorsese's movies. You're like, hey, how about a thriller? How about an action thriller? But still having all these good ass elements to it. So did a little small stuff after that. Kind of doesn't necessarily go straight into big blockbusters after getting the Oscar nomination. She was in a Woody Allen movie, a couple other things. In 1993, she kind of had a breakthrough. She was dating Brad Pitt at the time. But instead of with Brad Pitt, how about as Becky in 1983's What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
I really like that movie.
I really like that movie too. Introduced the world to Leonardo DiCaprio. The most normal Johnny Depp has ever been in a movie. Like he pretty much just a guy. Like usually he's a weirdo or doing something, or some sort of thing. Doesn't have the case here. So What's Eating Gilbert Grape in 1993, 1994. It's the most mixed thing she's ever been in. I know people who love this movie. I think they're probably on something, just because it's so insane. How about Natural Born Killers?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it. I've never watched it.
So it was an Oliver Stone movie, and Oliver Stone back in the 80s was really, really good when he was on cocaine. He would make Platoon, JFK, had all these great ideas, and you're just like, okay, it's like, well, you're obviously high as a kite, but what you're doing is working. And he made The Doors and all this, like a lot of good game. And then I think he got sober at one point, but he still had those like cocaine sensibilities. And that's what this movie is. It's a cocaine movie on a guy who doesn't do cocaine anymore. Like,
just stay on drugs, kids.
I'm not saying you should do cocaine.
No,
but Oliver Stone is much better as a filmmaker with cocaine. And it's just my personal opinion, but Natural Born Killers is about a pair of serial killers, Juliette Lewis, and Woody Harrelson. And there's a bunch of people in this. Tommy Lee Jones might be on cocaine in the movie. He plays a prison warden. Rodney Dangerfield is her dad. It's nuts. It's a crazy movie. Very visceral. But one of her more acclaimed performances. She's really good in it. It's just it's a tough movie to get behind. So the next year she made a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio called The Basketball Diaries. Won't include that one, but how about this one? The chances of you seeing it are slim. But a movie by director Catherine Bigelow about the year 2000 and the potential it could be. Strange Days.
No.
Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett. It's an odd movie. It's just kind of
like a Y2K thing.
Yeah. It's like what Y2K could be, but it's 1995, so people are like going like a lot of like virtual reality and like it's very dated. But not exactly surprised that you haven't seen it.
Nope.
So for some reason, a lot of times she just does like all these supporting roles. She doesn't get a lot of like, oh, I'm going to be the person in this movie. Specifically, the next year in 1996, the big breakthrough for George Clooney, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh.
Him and Quentin Tarantino are brothers who the first half of the movie is like a hostage movie, and the second half turns into vampires.
No,
if
doesn't ring any bells.
If you would have remembered it.
Okay, I guess I haven't seen it then.
Well, there's a very famous scene where Selma Hayek plays a vampire, but before she turns into a vampire, she's kind of a stripper. Maybe the most beautiful a human being has ever been. And then Quentin Tarantino, as one is to do, sucks on her toes. So,
right.
Not really surprising.
I mean, that's generally what I do with vampire strippers. I usually just go for the toes. I mean, that's
a Tarantino thing. So what do you expect? Okay. So this movie, it's very painful to watch. It's not one that you would really expect to, it's not one where you're like, oh yeah, I love this movie. I've seen it before, but it's almost cringy. It's called The Other Sister from 1999. Juliette Moore and Giovanni Ribisi play mentally challenged individuals who fall in love. And it tries to be authentic and like non-saccharine. And it's just like they miss the tone. I think Diane Keaton's Diane Keaton is the mom. I'm not saying you should watch it, but I figured you hadn't seen it. It's definitely one you will not forget if you have seen it. I know some people who are kind of fond of it, but The Other Sister, it's one that you're like, okay, this is a lot. So I'm not surprised.
No.
Okay.
But you keep calling her Julianne Moore.
Oh, Juliette Lewis. I'm so sorry. So not Julianne Moore, Juliette Lewis. Man, I am really screwing this up.
I'm usually the one that does dumbass shit.
Haven't even been drinking. Okay. Not Julianne Moore, Juliette Lewis in 2000. This is one we talked to, I think, a couple weeks ago. The Way of the Gun with Ryan Phillippe and Benicio del Toro. It's a great movie about these guys who are kind of like soldiers of fortune. And she kind of she's a pregnant woman who is kind of the crux of the narrative, kind of the driving force. She's really good in it. Again, not surprised you haven't seen it.
No, I don't think so.
How about something closer to maybe a little more on the lines of something you have seen? A couple of movies from the early 2000s. How about a supporting role in Jennifer Lopez's Enough? That's the one where she's an abused woman and then escape. It's like if Sleeping with the Enemy, if Jennifer Lopez was Julia Roberts. I actually said Julia Roberts, but Jennifer Lopez escapes from her abusive husband, but instead of like hiding out, she like gets really good at kickboxing, so she can kick the shit out of the guy. She has a supporting role in that. Okay. Now, one you definitely seen, 2003, the very memorable Heidi in Old School.
You know it.
Oh
yeah.
And plays such a small little role, but a fun little, like, really kicks off the whole narrative.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it really does. I mean, kind of the movie doesn't work without her. Without her character.
She has to break up their marriage to make Luke Wilson do what he was. We might do Old School one day. Just a crux of perfect Luke Wilson. It's a comedy Fight Club. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Vince Vaughn on, yes, all that kind of stuff. All right. Continuing after Old School, it's kind of staying with the same kind of people. Have you seen 2004 Starsky and Hutch?
Yes.
Yes. I don't remember what she does in that movie. I don't like, I know I've seen it. I've probably seen it more than once. I don't remember much anything about it.
No, I know I've seen it at least once, but yeah. I don't really remember it. So
okay. Okay. So this movie, I'm confident you haven't seen it. I'm mentioning it because I really like her in this movie. From 2009, directed by Drew Barrymore, Whip It. Okay, so Whip It is about Elliot Page, previously Ellen Page. Okay. Elliot Page is the star of Whip It, and they are a roller they're a young girl who wants to be in roller derby, and she joins this club to be roller derby, and she gets really good at it. And Juliette Lewis is kind of like the head. It's like the best player in the roller derby league, on a different team. She has this really great scene where she talks about like, how old are you? She's just like, oh, I'm 17. And she's like, you found what you want to do. And she goes, how old do you think I am? And Elliot Page is like, well, you're 26. It's like, oh, that's sweet. He's like, I'm 38 years old. It took me this long to find what I wanted to do in my life. And you're 17 and I'm not going to let you take this away from me. And I was like, oh, that's such a, and she brings it in the scene. She's really good in the scene. It's a really good movie. Kind of does a lot of different things. Not really what you expect. It's not like it's like a cliche girl power movie. It's good. I highly recommend Whip It to anybody who wants to seek it out. Very good movie. Lots of,
and I didn't know Drew Barrymore had directed
the
stuff
only thing she has directed, nothing else. She has not directed anything else for some reason. I don't know why. It was mildly successful. It was very well received. I don't really know why. So
check that out.
Not surprised you hadn't seen Whip It, but how about back on the same track of like Old School Starsky and Hutch? How about from 2010 Due Dates?
Yeah.
Zach Galifianakis and Robert Downey Jr. Very painful to watch at times.
Yeah.
Like she plays one of those supporting roles. Not exactly. I don't remember what she does in it, actually.
I don't either.
See, and I've seen Due Date more than once. It's just not one of the memorable things about it, I guess.
I have, yeah. I like Due Date.
I do too. And I think I remember it being a little cringy.
I don't remember her being in it.
Her name is Heidi. It's the same. It might be the same character from Old School. So I don't. It seems if I watched it again, I'm sure I'd be like, oh yeah, there she is.
Yeah.
So this is more along the lines of her trying to get back into the kind of Oscar race. She was in a adaptation of a play called August Osage County with Julia Roberts and Meryl Streep. 2013. Not again. She doesn't do a whole lot of like she'll have little things in like cameos in kind of more famous movies, but she doesn't really like go out there and do that kind of stuff. She's very smart with what she does. I really like how she does things.
Yeah, I was fixing to say that is like I like the saying stay in your lane.
Yes. She doesn't take a whole lot of chances.
In her lane where she's like, I'm a good supporting actress, and but she doesn't try to, overdo the big stars or anything.
And she kind of leans into her looks, I guess. Like she's like, well, I'm not going to be the classically beautiful woman, so why would I try to do those type of things? It's very, like you said, it's very respectable. Supporting role. This will be my last one. So this is a supporting role in a movie that came out a couple years ago. It was just a pre-pandemic movie starring Octavia Spencer. The classic Ma.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
You have seen Ma.
Yep.
I have not. I've not seen. I've heard it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Me and my wife watched it one night, like one of those Netflix downloads.
Sure.
One night.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I've seen it.
It's one of those things where you're like, it's very campy. It's very stupid. Like,
yeah.
But I mean, but it's good fun.
Yeah.
So, a little better than what I was expecting, actually. I thought you were going to lay a big egg, and you went 7 for 15 on Juliette Lewis. Juliette Lewis, not Julianne Moore. You know what I blame? Right. Julianne Moore has a little scene in Natural Born Killers, so it got in my head. So that screwed me up. So yeah, but 7 out of 15 for Juliette Lewis. These days, still does a little. She was in a movie last year called Mayday. Good movie. She was good in it. She's also in the show Yellow Jackets, which I've heard nothing but good things about. It's about a group of I believe soccer. It was a girls' soccer team who had like an alive situation. They crashed in the in the forest, and they had to survive for months. And it goes back and forth between then and now. Universal acclaim across the board for pretty much everybody, and she's one of the people in it. Yellow so still working hard. I think that just about does it for Pull for a Dumbass. And then after Pull for a Dumbass, we traditionally
we walk into the hot box, buddy.
We are in the hot box. Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Sometimes it's just trivia, sometimes it's not. What you got for me?
All right. What's just the worst Christmas you've ever had?
So I remember I had our parents lived overseas without us at times. So sometimes during holidays, they wouldn't be here, just kind of the nature of their stuff. So I was thinking one year, I'm like, hey, they're not here. It's going to be nice and relaxed and no big deal. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and her parents were split up. So we had to go to 2 separate Christmases. And at the same time, me, you, and our other brother met with our grandfather to put in some time with him for Christmas. So we started, I think we started at my apartment. That's where I woke up. Then we went over to her mom's house. We were there probably longer we needed to be. We went to her dad's house, and then we all 3 met up for our grandfather. And the whole time, her mom is like, when are y'all coming back over? And we go back over there. And I think at the end of the night, we went somewhere else. Like I didn't feel like it was chaos. It was too much people in one place. Like on the day, it's one thing to be like, oh, we're going to do like nowadays, my in-laws always do Christmas Eve. So I don't have to worry about Christmas Day. We do Christmas Eve with them, Christmas Day with our mom. So it's not like we have to separate that. But I mean, the chaos of trying to go all these different places one year is just hell. And I was young, had all this energy. It didn't matter. It was just like, this is exhausting.
Yeah. And it makes me think of 4 Christmases.
Absolutely.
Especially, if you have separated parents or separated in-laws or something, just all that many more, and
just a mess.
Like,
and then hey, somebody called and they want us, and just kind of like, can we just say no? Like, we never had to worry about that. We never had to worry about that as kids. Somehow our grandparents synced it up where one would get Christmas, one would get Thanksgiving, and then they'd switch the next year. And it was smooth as silk every year, according to us. Later on, we hear there's a little bit of stuff in the background, but to us, it was exactly what it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It comes back to, it seems,
it's for the kids.
Nostalgia. When you're a kid, everything is just as good as it can get, and then you become an adult and you're like, God, that must have been a nightmare.
It's like, you know what, it was a nightmare. Yes
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna break protocol a little bit, but it's my hot box, so I can do whatever I want. So I'm going to ask you a question. Normally, I would require you to answer truthfully.
Okay.
This one, do not say the answer.
Okay.
Don't say it.
Okay, I won't.
Don't answer this
question.
Do
not answer. Okay.
Answer in your brain.
Okay.
Okay. And I would encourage our viewing audience to answer the same question. Just keep it in your brain.
Okay.
Don't vocalize it.
Okay.
All right.
I like this.
Who is your cousin Eddie that shows up at a family gathering and you go,
okay.
You go, God damn.
We know who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, there are different levels of cousin Eddie. There are certain things, like if you're in certain places and you're like, okay, somebody shows up, it's like, okay, well, I can deal with that, or he or she can do their thing. Other times you're like, oh no. It's like, he's like, they're here. It's like, oh, they're not alone. I was like, oh no. It's, that is a very good way to ask that. Without, yes, exactly. Everybody has their own cousin Eddie. And if you don't think, if your family doesn't have a cousin Eddie, you're probably the cousin Eddie.
That's something else I wondered is like, because I want everyone watching this to, I know all 6 people that are gonna be like, yep.
That's the one. Yep, exactly.
Everyone has one.
Everyone has one. It's part of the deal.
But I also wondered that is, you got to think, am I one for someone else? Like when I show up, did they go,
no. I always like to put myself in like, well, no matter how bad I am, as long as they're there, I'm good. Like you just can't be the worst one. It's
right.
Like,
you're like, if I keep my mouth relatively shut, I'll be fine.
Uncle Lewis could be the cousin Eddie, but cousin Eddie's here. So Uncle Lewis gets the grace. Yeah, exactly. So that's that is a wonderful way to say that. Yes. Yeah.
We all have them, folks. And
yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Part of the deal. You had the worst part of the holidays is having to put up with people you do not want to put up with, but are obligated to out of love.
Yeah.
Yep.
It happens.
It's a great question.
This movie perfectly encapsulates that.
So, I mean, it takes Clark 5 minutes to be like, I can't believe you're here.
Yeah. It's we all know how it works, folks.
Yes. Yeah.
So without saying it, we all have our
the answer. Yep.
All right. Who's your favorite character out of this whole movie? There's a plethora of good ones, but
I mean, it's probably going to end up being it's Ellen, just because of her like, she's so, every time she comes on, she's funny, she looks good, she does nice things, she's endearing. But I would have Clark Sr. as my runner-up, just because it's like, he's like, oh, what a sweet man. And you're like, oh, I see where Clark gets it from. Like, not necessarily being an idiot, but I see like where just the hopeless romantic of hoping for the best in the situations comes from. Yeah.
It's, the idiocy comes from the best of intentions.
Yes. Yes. It's not malicious. Yes.
Right. Whereas like, I think, like Ellen's parents,
they kind of suck. Like, Ellen got the best out of them. Like, those would be tough in-laws. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Now, is yours Aunt Bethany?
Yes.
Okay. I do love Aunt Bethany. She is great.
It's a funny squeaking noise.
You couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear a dump truck at a nitroglycerin factory. Yeah.
Yeah. But that one line, like, don't throw me down, Clark.
Is Rusty still in the Navy?
Yeah. No, she is my favorite character.
She's great. Yes.
The Harvest.
Yes.
Do you put Christmas lights on your house?
Well, there are Christmas lights on my house, but I don't put them on there anymore. So it used to be that I would go out there, put the thing up and hang my own lights. That has not been the case anymore, mostly just because, so I had all these like hanging lights, and the first day I got the first Christmas at our new house, I go up there, I pull up a staple gun and I pop, and it's pressurized wood. So it just flings back. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not nailing anything to my house today. So I went, well, okay. So there's like a lawn service guy that hangs it up every year. But yes, I do have, there are blue lights on the house right now. I have a blow up snowman out front and a couple wreaths. Nothing crazy. Like I had friends in high school they had a lot and they added to it every year. It's one of those, like, people go to see that house.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm always impressed with that. I don't necessarily want to do it. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah. It's like our last house, I put Christmas lights up every year. And at the time I was a street cop.
Yeah.
And the most terrifying part of my year was on that roof.
Well, because
I do not like heights.
And West Texas wind, trying to put something up in West Texas wind is so dicey. It is like you're up there and you're like sitting up and you're about to, you're unstable enough with your arms up, you're not supported. And then you get and you're a little bit off balance. That's another one of my secret favorite things is Clark on the thing, on the ladder.
Can't figure out where to grab.
Just out of the panic of trying to.
He goes back on the tree and just shoves himself back on.
No, I agree. And I remember I was living at my parents' house. They weren't living there. And I decided to put up Christmas lights when they came in. And there's a little landing, which I had to crawl out on. And I put Christmas lights on there. I don't know how I did it, but I mean, being on that landing, one of the more terrifying parts. I mean, I know
exactly where you're talking, and I painted that some bit.
it was dicey. I mean, and where Clark's on top with his feet straddled on the very top, and he's stapling. Whenever he fell, my Peter hole squeezed. Like it was like.
You just said Peter hole.
You know what I mean.
I do, but you just said Peter hole.
Yes, because that's the best way to describe it. like you're up there. Yes.
All the holes are closed at that point.
Yes, exactly. Yes. They're either all open or all closed and no in between.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. The idea of falling off a roof, even though, as kids, I remember jumping off the edge of the roof and falling to the ground and being like, oh, okay, I'm fine. Knowing that. And I'm still like, nope, this is too tall. So
I would break everything if I did that.
Right.
I mean, yeah. And I had a boss that he was putting up Christmas lights. This has been a lot of years ago, but like he broke his collarbone, dislocated his shoulder, broke all his ribs and all that kind of stuff. And so our house now is a 2-story house. I'm like, I barely did the 1 story. So
I mean,
we have a porch.
And lights around the porch. Yeah, I got professionals, and they I'll pay it every time.
And yeah, I had a lawn service, and in the winter, That's what a lot of them do. And I was
Yeah.
like, if you think I'm getting up on roofs, you got another thing coming.
I agree.
Yeah. Ben,
Jake,
you're free to leave.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. That was the hot box. Also looking for sponsorship. We are willing to whore ourselves out to anybody who is. Do you not think I will go on here and tell you about rhino pills that you get at a gas station? We are willing to stoop down for the sake of sponsorship. But
yeah.
I mean, mostly Jake wants a knife for free, but I mean,
Kershaw.
I reached out. I haven't heard anything yet. I'll re-up and tell them to check this out again.
I'll be a Kershaw ambassador. I love your knives.
Oh, that's great.
They're my favorite. I'll throw away the Spydercos.
You'll be 100%. You'll be brand loyal.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Before we go, what is your rating of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
My favorite funny Christmas movie. Favorite funny one.
I would probably agree with you. It's the one. It's the one where I'm like, oh, it's so stupid and fun, and it's lightning quick. It doesn't take any time out of your day. It's just line after line. I have it 3.5 out of 5. You can't take it you can't view it like a regular movie. You can't view it like, oh no, like this is a poorly. And it's like, shut up. Like it's fun. You enjoy yourself. Yes.
I mean, I know. I mean, we probably overuse this analogy, but it's the fair.
Yes.
Cheeseburger.
It's a deep fried Christmas tree cake.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't go to McDonald's and be like, why didn't y'all give me a
where's the arugula? Yes.
Right.
Yes. Exactly. So
no, it's good. It does exactly what it needs to do.
Yep. I agree. It is a classic for a reason. We will be doing Christmas movies all month long. Thank you so much for joining us here today. That does it for this episode of the Film Critic Common Man podcast. Thank you so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at NebIsBen, Letterboxd at Neb810, on Instagram, Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, Ice Cream for Freaks. Oh, I'm busy with movies because so many are coming out all of a sudden. My review of The Fabelmans is the most viewed thing I've had in the last 6 months. I didn't really like it all that much, but the Steven Spielberg movie got a lot of new stuff coming out this week. Pinocchio, Empire of Light, Emancipation with Will Smith, all sorts of reviews coming out this week. Find my other writings on the Film Experience and Cinema Scholars. You can also find me on other pods as I'm the Daily Foodless Podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you? Stuck in your house?
Why don't you bend over and I'll show you?
You got a lot of nerve talking to me like that.
What talking to you?
Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter, Critic Common Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. Our last podcast is the most listened podcast we've had on audio mediums we've had since episode 3. So thank you very much for listening on there. We're gonna be doing every listen, every view. We're aware of it and we see it and we thank you very, very much.
We appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're going to catch you next time. We will be staying with Christmas, kinda. Die Hard next week. It's going to be I love Die Hard so much. I can't wait to talk about it. We will catch you guys. We will catch you guys next time.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?